Okay, welcome to lesson 21, distributed property and order of operations. I put a definition of distribute on here for you because when we do distributed property, we should know what that means. Okay, to distribute means to divide and give out in shares, or to disperse over a space, or to pass out and deliver. So that's like if I said I'm going to distribute Jolly Ranchers to the class, I would distribute Jolly Ranchers to everybody in the class, not just some people. So when I distribute, I have to distribute to everything, okay, and pass them out. All right, let's go on to the examples. Okay, here's the distributive property. Okay, then over here I'm going to write a spot for some examples. Okay, so the distributive property is A times B plus C. So we're going to have something that we're taking times two things in parentheses. Okay, so here's how this works. And I want you to do this every time. Okay, so the distributive property, I draw a little rainbow kind of things here. Okay, and that's to help me know that I had to distribute that A to everything inside the parentheses. Because again, we distribute equally, so everything gets a fair share. So that means my A has to be distributed to my B and my C. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take A times C plus B times C. Okay, so we're taking A times B, and then we're keeping our addition sign here. So we got A times C plus, because of the addition sign, and then B times C right here. Alright, so an example here. Let's say I took 2 times 3 plus 4. Now normally I could solve this by adding 3 and 4 first and then multiplying by 2. Or I can distribute. Okay, so to distribute, I'm going to draw my little arrows here. I'm going to take 2 times 3. And I'm going to add 2 times 4. Okay, so these arrows are to help me remember what I'm distributing and where I'm distributing it to. So the 2 goes to the 3, 2 times 3. Got my plus sign. Then the 2 goes to the 4, 2 times 4. Okay? Well, we can have multiple things to distribute to as well, besides just two things. So in this case, the A has to be distributed to the B, to the C, and to the D, because they're all separated by plus signs. Okay, so this is going to mean A times B plus A times C plus A times D. A plus B, A times B plus sign A times C plus sign A times D. So if I look at another example, say this time I have 2 times 3 plus 4 plus 5. Okay, I need to distribute the 2 to every term, to all three of them. Okay, so I get 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4 plus 2, let's make a little better 2 there, plus 2 times 5. Okay, so again, distribute 2 times 3 comes from right here, plus 2 times 4 plus 2 times 5. Okay, this also works with minus signs in between. Now notice we got 3 examples and we've only got separation in the parentheses by pluses and by minuses. Okay, there's nothing in there about times or divide. Alright, so this is when we have pluses or minuses inside the parentheses. So with a minus, it's going to work the exact same way. Okay, so we're going to take A times B and A times C, and we're going to subtract them. So we got A times B minus A times C. Okay, because of this minus sign right here. So example is 2 times 5 minus 3. Okay, so again we distribute to both terms. They're separated by a subtraction sign this time, so we're going to subtract them. So 2 times 5 minus 2 times 3. Okay, now in all these examples here, we would never leave these like this, okay? I know what 2 times 3 is, and I know what 2 times 4 is, and then I would add them together. Okay, but for the sake of just seeing what the distributive property is, we're going to leave those alone for now. Okay, but in the examples, we'll actually take these and simplify them down. But that's what the distributive property means. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So objective 1 is to use the distributive property. Okay, so there are two ways you can use the distributive property. One is to expand something, and one is to factor something. And we'll take a look at both of those. Okay, so let's first look at expand. Okay, so again, we want to go ahead and distribute this 3 to both terms. So I'm going to draw my little arrows here. I want you to do that every single time. So this equals 3 times W plus 3 times M. Now I want you to get used to when you've got a number multiplied by a letter like this, a number multiplied by a variable, or a constant multiplied by a variable, I want you to get used to not putting the times sign in between. Okay, so 3 times W is just written as 3W. And then this would be 3M. Okay? And I delete that. I can't add W's to M's. They're not the same thing. So I am done here. Okay, that's expanding it. Now B. It says factor A times X plus A times Y. Well, if you look, I'm multiplying by A both times. Okay. Now when I read this, listen, I got A times X and A times Y. So I'm multiplying by A both times. That's kind of like up here where I had 3 times W and 3 times M. I multiplied by 3 both times. Okay? So this is written a lot like this is. Okay? So what we want to do is when we want to factor, we want to make it look like this right here, where we got the parentheses. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is take out what they have in common. So what do this term and this term have in common? Well, they both have A's. So I'm going to put an A, pull an A out of there. I'm going to put a parenthesis sign. Okay? So I had A times X plus A times Y, but I took out my A. Okay? And I moved my A's up over here. Okay? Right here. So now look at all I have left here. I've got X plus Y. So that's what's going to go in my parentheses. Is X. Sorry, let me erase that. Okay? In my parentheses, I'm just going to put X plus Y. And there's my answer. Okay, so that's factoring. Expanding is when we want to take something and write it out like this. Okay, and factoring then is when we want to take something that's written out and kind of shorthand it a little bit, make it a little bit simpler. Okay, let's move on to some more examples. So now, again, we got another one. We got expand first. So to expand 3 times X plus 2. Okay, so we want to show what that means. We want to expand it out. Sorry about the bell. Okay, so we're going to distribute these. So I'm going to take 3 times X plus, and I'm going to multiply 3 times 2. Now I want you to show me that step every time. Okay, so show me what we're actually multiplying together. Well, 3 times X, we just talked about this, we can write as 3X plus, this time I know what 3 times 2 is, so I can actually rewrite that as 6. Sorry, let me erase that. Okay, because 3 times 2 is 6. And there's my answer. Now, don't just get from here to here. Okay, show me this step in between for now. Okay, while we're getting used to distributing. Show me that what you're actually multiplying together, and then simplify it. Alright? So part B. Factor 6 times x plus 9. So when we factor, again, we want to pull out something that they have in common. Okay? Well, 6 and 9 don't directly have anything in common. Okay? 6 and 9 aren't the same thing. However, they do have a common factor. So I'm going to ask myself, okay, what goes into both 6 and 9? What goes into both of those numbers? And the answer is 3. Okay? So I'm going to take a 3 out of this. Well, and now I'm going to ask myself, okay, 3 times what gives me 6? And that's 2. But then I got this x right here that I have to put into. Then I got a plus sign. And then I'm going to ask myself, 3 times what gives me 9? And that's 3. Okay, so again, this works because 3 times 2 equals 6, and 3 times 3 equals 9. So they both have this common factor of 3. That's what we were able to pull out right here.
Mrs. Summers to the office. Mrs. Summers to the office.
Okay, so when we factor, we're pulling out something they have in common. We're pulling out a greatest common factor is all we're doing. And so we know the greatest common factor of 6 and 9 is 3, so we pulled out the 3. And 3 times 2 gives me 6, and then I had an x on the end of it. And then 3 times 3 gives me 9. So that's where this came from. So here's the factoring. Okay, let's keep going on. Okay, let's talk about the order of operations. Okay, order of operations is something we've talked about a little bit already. Okay, PEMDAS. P-E-M-D-A-S. A common phrase you'll hear for that is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Right? Well, the P stands for, what this does is this tells us the order in which to simplify a problem. Okay? So we have to look for certain things if we want to simplify a problem all the way down. The very first thing that we look for is parentheses. Okay, and parentheses can stand for a number of things. Okay, they can actually mean parentheses. They can mean brackets. They can mean braces. And they can also mean a fraction bar. The fraction bar acts like putting parentheses on top and on the bottom. Okay? So parentheses, we call them grouping symbols. So first thing we have to look for when we want to simplify a problem is grouping symbols. Parentheses, brackets, braces, or a fraction bar. Okay? The next thing we need to look for is exponents. Okay? So once we've simplified things, or once we've looked in parentheses, we look at exponents next. Okay? And exponents, remember, just something like 3 to the second power, or something like that. So exponents are next. Then after that, I've got these color-coded because these two things go together. Okay? Multiplication and division go together, and you do them in order from left to right. Okay? This order of operations is like a chain of command. Like we're saying parentheses are the most important thing, exponents are the next most important thing. Then we're saying multiplication and division are important together. Okay? So they are the same importance. And you do them in whatever order they come, from left to right. Okay? So if multiplication is on the left and then division is on the right, you do the multiplying first. If division is on the left and multiplying is on the right, you do the division first, because they're the same strength, if you will. Okay, they're the same importance. Same thing with the last two, addition and subtraction. They are the same importance as each other. So you do them whatever order they come in, from left to right. Why left to right? Because that's how we read. Okay, that's how we are in America. We do things from left to right. So even order of operations is on left to right. So parentheses, meaning grouping symbols, so any parentheses, brackets, braces, or fraction bars. Once you look in the parentheses, if there are any, you check for exponents and do those. Then after you've done exponents, or there aren't any, you do multiplying and dividing from left to right. And the last thing you do is adding and subtracting from left to right. Okay, and this is how we're going to simplify expressions. So let's look at some examples of that.